Watching movies can be a great escape from our dull, boring reality. You get to witness epic fight scenes between superheroes. Watch massive beasts go head-to-head. Or enter an entire majestic world of witchcraft and wizardry. But have you ever wondered how these cinematic masterpieces were actually shot, minus all the CGI? Needless to say, they're less epic than the final output. Some of them even border on hilarious. Let's take a look at what these 10 movies look like without special effects. What's up, Factnatics? This is Discovery Amuse serving up your daily dose of the most outrageous, outlandish, and out-of-this-world fun facts. Stay tuned till number 1 because the CGI force is strong on that one. Number 10. The Matrix. Who could forget this iconic bullet-dodging scene from the 1999 sci-fi epic The Matrix? This frozen moment has solidified itself as one of the most memorable sequences in film history. But at a time when technology hadn't really caught up in film production, how did the Wachowskis pull off this anti-gravity feat? Apparently, this scene took around 120 still cameras to capture the movement from multiple angles. To be honest, it still looks quite impressive when you look at it raw. Or maybe it's just Keanu. And remember that iconic flying kick Trinity did? It was also shot using the same technique.
1, 2, 3, yeah!
Keep watching because you won't believe how the Star Wars universe actually looks behind the scenes. Number 9. 1917. For those who've seen this 2019 war film, you'd know the whole movie was made to look like one long, continuous shot so the viewers can immerse themselves in the long, arduous journey the main characters take.
Sometimes you have a camera being carried by an operator, hooked onto a wire, and the wire carries it across more land, and it's unhooked again. That operator runs with it.
Of course, we know it wasn't really shot in one long take. Still, a lot of planning, preparation, and rehearsal were put in to achieve the seamless illusion, even after all the stitching is done in post.
The art department, more than anyone, has been really affected just figuring out the scale of how large these sets need to be.
And despite the incredible work of the art department, enhancements were still made in post-production to make the scenes more natural. For instance, they built the burning city and relied on visual effects to make it look more realistic. Even the scene where Schofield jumps off a waterfall was enhanced by CGI.
Instead of a river, he jumps onto a mat. With the help of some visual effects, the editors were able to seamlessly stitch together the character jumping off the ledge and into the rapids.
In this case, the team shot the sequences at a canoe training center in England and made the river look larger in post. And the scene where a plane crashes into the ground, a practical aircraft prop was shot separately from the actors. And here's a fun fact. Did you know that George stumbling over while running across the battlefield was actually unscripted?
What?
The actor bumped into one of the extras accidentally but continued to run after taking a tumble, which director Sam Mendes ultimately used in the final cut. Number 8. Gravity. Full disclosure, watching this 2013 Oscar-nominated film made me nauseous and claustrophobic. So, how did they achieve this stunning feat of cinematic visual effects? Well, it involved a lot of rigs, robotics, and flexibility.
It was literally like these rigs had your life in their hands. If something broke, I had nothing to hold on to.
Much of Sandra's scenes were of her facial performance, but she wears a white spacesuit in some. The scenes with the space shuttles, the International Space Station, and the outer space vignettes were all created on a computer. For director Alfonso Cuarón, it wasn't about the technology though, but capturing the realism of an astronaut facing very real troubles in an unfamiliar environment. Number 7. Planet of the Apes trilogy. The most amazing thing about this modern reimagining of Planet of the Apes is how the titular apes moved, interacted, and reacted to situations like human beings do. And it's all thanks to the impressive work of the motion capture actors led by the legendary Andy Serkis.
Trying to show this emotional journey of Caesar and show it through the emotion of how intelligent he is actually a very subtle kind of thing, and it would be pretty much impossible to do if we didn't have Andy Serkis basically acting out that journey.
Even before the actual filming, months of pre-production went into researching actual apes, from their various anatomical structures to the subtle nuances in their movements. These helped the VFX artists make the apes look more complex and photorealistic.
When we go to take our first step, you reach and absorb through the shoulder. Boom, keeping those hips square.
But all the technological feats of the special effects team wouldn't have been as successful if not for the brilliant acting of Andy Serkis, who gave his character Caesar that humanistic gravitas.
Out of the blood and carnage of the past, a world founded upon faith and understanding.
Number 6. Jurassic World. We chose to look into Jurassic World's production as it used a new technique never before seen in previous installments. The memorable Velociraptor scene in particular would have looked like a weird cult thing before the magic happens.
The actors with those like raptor helmets, they have to be able to get into the mindset of how a raptor moves, and the predatory qualities that give the actors like visual cues to make them even scarier.
The actors wore a now familiar gray suit for motion capture, which gave a unique, realistic look to predators who lived way before we even existed. Some of the new dinosaurs brought to life in this 2015 film were played mainly by people, but not the main CG character, the Indominus Rex.
How do we make something look menacing? How do we make her look really menacing? The teeth would always be exposed.
This engineered dinosaur was done through computers, so actors had to pretend to be chased by a massive, deadly abomination. Number 5. Inception. Director Christopher Nolan wanted as many scenes as possible to be captured on camera for this cerebral sci-fi film instead of relying on post-production sorcery.
Very much the sort of grand scale physical effect that I think can make an action film go to that next level.
Because of this, we get to see the hotel hallway dream fight with Joseph Gordon-Levitt happen with the help of a giant hamster wheel-looking set, which the actors had to rehearse on for 2 weeks in order to familiarize themselves with the revolving set without getting dizzy. Another gem of a set is the one shot in a French cafe where everything suddenly explodes in slow motion. To be honest, it still looked pretty impressive without CGI, especially after all the rehearsals done prior to the actual shoot.
And we showed them to Leo and showed it to Ellen and said, this is what it's going to be.
What we do in visual effects is we can add more destruction, we can add more debris. In particular, we can add the kind of stuff which just wasn't possible to do on the day when we actually filmed it.
Number 4, Avatar. James Cameron's Avatar, which is hailed as the highest grossing film of all time, was highly dependent on CGI. However, it still needed reference materials to animate the 10-foot-tall blue-skinned humanoid species of Pandora.
The computer is creating a real-time moving skeleton of you. From that skeleton, you now can drive a computer-generated character.
Rather than putting the actors in blue makeup and calling it a day, the actors were made to wear head rigs to image the face while they did their scene.
They sent me here to learn your ways.
What are you saying, Jake?
This technique enabled the director to capture the actors' faces in close-up, regardless of the stunts they had to do on set.
Even though the actor's moving all around, running, jumping, yelling, screaming, jumping off stuff, jumping over logs, running flat out, whatever, we're getting that facial performance absolutely locked off.
The footage from the head cameras are then used to realistically transform the actors into members of the Na'vi tribe.
What we're trying to do is take what the actor is doing emotionally in any given scene and to translate that into the characters.
Number 3, Avengers Endgame. As expected, the Marvel Cinematic Universe isn't as marvelous sans all the special effects. but it's still a joy to watch our favorite superheroes wage infinity war against inanimate objects and villains in green spandex. But despite all the CGI, it was important that the actors play off of each other as much as possible.
Ideally, in any situation when you have a digital character, you want to have two actors acting to one another. That's where the magic happens, and we can replace it digitally, but we certainly can't manufacture that.
There are too many memorable scenes to speak of in Avengers Endgame, but what you might not know is that pre-visualization for CGI-heavy films, such as the MCU movies, are done years before actual filming. The previous shots then become the template for the actors and the director in composing the shots. So that scene when Cap assembled the Avengers, it was already pre-visualized long before the scene was shot, and the actors were shot batch per batch and stitched together in post.
For the final battle, our department provided us with an overall map of where the different beats were going to take place, and we staged our previs accordingly. There was a lot of nondescript areas.
But for the Marvel Sisterhood scene, all of the actors were actually on set, giving us some serious girl power vibes.
Everyone's just kind of taking their turns, moving around, trying to help each other out. It was so fun.
And for that epic final showdown, a lot of practical effects and props were needed to simulate the baddies and for our beloved heroes to physically interact with.
We had the kind of the big shot where you kind of went into the live action of everybody together. Then you come up into the air to see Giant Man punch the Leviathan, you go back to CG, and then you come back down again on Panther and Okoye and Shuri.
Number 2, Lord of the Rings. No one could watch The Lord of the Rings and not be mesmerized by the marriage of artistry and technology in Middle-earth. For one, Tolkien's Gollum was revolutionary and changed CGI forever. Andy Serkis, yes, the same guy who played the ape Caesar in the Planet of the Apes, brilliantly played the role of the Hobbit obsessed with the ring, and his acting was captured using never-before-seen technology in the early 2000s.
You don't have any friends. Nobody likes you.
As for the hobbits, elves, and many other creatures in this world, the team relied on makeup and prosthetics. For such a massive franchise, the crew did superb work for more than 26,000 cast members and extras. And with this in mind, the scaling of LOTR is among the trilogy's most challenging aspects. The team achieved this by using what is called forced perspective.
Is be able to move the camera for the first time. That they were always techniques that required the camera to be locked off, because once you started to move the camera, it would give away the illusion of one person being further away.
Some of the characters stand closer to the camera to create the illusion of difference in sizes. They also used a lot of moving platforms so that when the camera moves, the illusion is maintained. Before we go to our number 1 pick, do us a solid and make sure to smash the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Don't forget to choose all so you won't miss out on any of our latest life-changing, boredom-busting content, and of course, be sure to turn on notifications in your app settings. Number 1, Star Wars Original Trilogy. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, George Lucas came up with the idea for an epic space fantasy he called Star Wars. But with CGI in its early stages in the 1970s, it became immediately clear that he wouldn't be able to rely on the technology to bring his rich world of bizarre and beautiful creatures to life. He didn't give up, though, and formed a team to realize his crazy ideas. Together, they staged a bunch of practical effects, like, say, the lightsabers that didn't really light up during filming.
As we moved on, we got more proficient at actually doing sword fighting. We then used swords that didn't have the reflective material.
The crew also had to make a Millennium Falcon model, much like the toys collectors obsess over now, and took footage of it in front of a blue screen for all the details in post. These guys look like they're just playing with spaceships, but the end product is a masterpiece and way ahead of its time. So, which among these feats of movie magic absolutely blew you away? Let us know in the comments section below. Take home any of our exclusive gear by browsing our merch shelf or clicking the link in the video description. And while you're at it, take our quiz to find out how you can earn extra cash online doing what you do best. Awesome, right? Unfortunately, a great movie isn't just all about the flawless visual effects. Just check out our list of the 9 worst live-action remakes of popular cartoons and see for yourself. Till then, keep calm and watch a movie, Factanatics, and we'll see you in the next video.